Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight on Hercules and the Space Gods, I am proud to bring you THEOSOPHIA, Esoteric Studies, and tonight's host is Lynne Miceli of the ARE in New York City. Greetings.
Thank you, Hercules. Thanks so much. Our topic tonight is spirit art and mediumship, and my guest is Richard Stuttle, who is joining us from the UK, where it's 2 a.m. Very grateful to him for actually getting up in the wee hours to do this. Richard is a working professional fine artist, a medium, and he combines those abilities in spirit art demonstrations and workshops in venues around the UK and Europe. And on June 1st, the ARE of New York, that's the Association for Research and Enlightenment of New York, will be sponsoring Richard in an online workshop on spirit art and mediumship. Richard is also trained as a healer, and he's a published author and one of the founders of Carolyn's Rainbow Foundation, a charity created after the passing to spirit of his sister in 2002. The charity promotes travel safety to our next generation of backpackers and world travelers. Richard's book is Chasing Rainbows, The Stolen Future of Carolyn Ann Stuttle. So Richard, we have a lot of things to talk about. Again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation, and it is certainly my privilege to be here. Well, this morning for me and this evening for you.
Right, right. And I had the pleasure of watching you yesterday in a spirit art demonstration along with medium Penny Hayward, and that was lovely. The two of you working together, it was really very nice the way you kind of bounced off one another and had fun while you were doing what you were doing, and brought forth an enormous amount of really wonderful information.
Yes, the spirit art is certainly a great passion of mine, and to find somebody who you can work well with is a rarity, really, because it's not only working in the connection with the spirit world, it's also that connection within this world and that holding of energy and bringing forward that information and that love from the spirit and passing that on to the congregation or the recipient. The demonstration, I thought the energy was beautiful, and it's always seems to be like that when I work with Penny. So I'm really privileged to find her and for us to be able to work together in that way.
It was beautiful. It was really, they were really interesting personalities who were brought forward by both of you. So please tell our audience about spirit art, the background and the history, and what exactly you do when you work as a spirit artist.
Well, I certainly, I've been interested in art pretty much all my life. My father's an artist. He's also a practicing spirit artist, although he's very close to retirement at the moment. But I've been surrounded by art since I was very young. So I've always had that interest in creativity, that interest in spending time with yourself and looking inwards. So that sensitivity was always there for me. Once my sister passed to spirit, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, I had that interest in where is she now? Where did she go? And that really opened up those questions about the spirit world. I started to look at the evidence and, well, what happens when you go to spirit? How does mediumship work? The mechanics behind it, and that led me really to bring the art in and the creativity in. Because I was looking for evidence of life after death. I was looking where Caroline was now. And what more evidence can you have than a drawing of somebody who you've never met, who you don't know, bringing forward evidence and that feeling from the spirit world, that love from the spirit world, and that coming through a medium. And I thought, well, that is fantastic evidence if we can match a picture with a photograph of your loved one who's passed to the spirit. So I started getting interested in spirit art. I started to look at certainly from the UK, people like Frank Lear. Frank Lear was around in the 1920s, 1930s, fantastic illustrator and a portrait artist in his own right. He started to draw images of people in his mind's eye. He started to draw these pictures of people that he didn't know, he didn't recognize. people come to his studio and they came to look at his work, and they started to recognize these images as, oh, that's my grandmother, that's my grandfather, that's my great aunt. And he started to then pull that information together and start to get other pieces of information. He started to realize that he was working with his clairvoyance. He was seeing these pictures, these images in his mind's eye of these faces, and they were recognizable faces. And he then started to develop his mediumship. So the images, and certainly in one of his books, he talks about matching these images to these photographs and just being absolutely astounded. The resemblance, the likeness, the information. And he started working with his other clairsentience and the other clairs around that. We moved forward to a lady called Coral Polge. And she started to bring color in. She was a pastel artist and a portrait artist, but she started to take it that step further. And she worked with a medium. She worked very closely with a gentleman called Gordon Higginson. And of course, in the UK, we have the Arthur Findlay College, which is one of the top colleges, certainly in the country, and I feel a world-renowned college for mediumship, for the psychic sciences, for that development around spirituality. So there's some demonstrations that you could watch with Coral and Gordon, and they would be working together. Coral would be drawing the picture. Back then it was called psychic art, because it was felt that a medium would need to work with a psychic artist, and the medium would bring forward the evidence, and the psychic artist would link in on a psychic level to bring forward the image of the spirit communicator. So Coral really developed it to that next level. When we move forward to today, color is really important and seems to come forward very closely with mediumship. And certainly the auragraphs, the people like Harold Sharp started to bring forward those little keys that you get within color. But currently, artists have trained and developed their mediumship. Mediums have trained and developed their creativity and their art side, and the two have kind of married together. So you can get artists now, or mediums that can do the lot. They can give the mediumship and deliver that mediumship as well as that portrait. So you're getting the evidence from the spirit communicator. You're getting the color. You're getting the portrait. You're getting that love from the paper and from the pastels. I certainly work in pastels because it's a very quick medium when you're working with the spirit world and you're working on the platform. But you can give such greater impact, I feel, with the art as well as the mediumship.
I would say that I've participated in online demonstrations of mediumship, but when you added the spirit art, that made it so much more. The word that comes to mind is colorful, which is a bit of a pun, but it did. It just added a whole other dimension to it. So when you do spirit art, can you describe what you're doing?
So it's really, it goes back to my training as an artist, and really starting in those points where you can look at some of the fantastic artworks from some of the masters, and there just seems to be that little touch of magic within that. And when you're doing a large scale oil painting, for example, there'll be points within that painting that you lose yourself. You've lost a sense of time. You don't really feel the whole painting or any particular detail. You're just working with your intuition. You're working with that sensitivity. And those are the little bits of magic that keeps kind of come together within that painting. And you can see that. And when feeling that process as an artist, there are times where you have to be focused and put the detail and the structure, and you look at the overall piece of art. But there are very much times where you're allowing that freedom to flow. You're allowing the intuition or that love from certainly what is spirit or what is energy that we're working in, because all we're doing really is working with different energies and different frequencies, that of the spirit world, that of this world, that of Mother Earth. And the job of the medium, I feel, is certainly to bring that energy together with the congregation or the audience, and to link in and bring that from the spirit and hold that space. So really, when you're working with the art, you're working with that creativity The arm is almost moving independently, and the mind is switching and flicking between what I'm doing as an artist and what I'm doing drawing, sometimes instinctively, sometimes guided by the spirit, and then what I'm doing from the mediumship side. So it's almost, I feel, for me, it's like a pendulum swing. When I'm talking and I'm giving the evidence, if I'm working alone, then I would be linking into the spirit communicator and delivering that evidence. But while I'm doing that and while I'm speaking and feeling what the spirit communicator is giving to me, my hand is almost moving independently. I'm drawn to certain colors. I'm putting certain symbols, certain images on the paper, which then when my conscious mind can flick and see, oh, hang on, what am I doing with the art and the creativity? I can start to ask those questions. What does this color mean? Or what does this symbol mean from the spirit communicator for the recipient? It's interesting you mentioned the color, because if I use the color of yellow, for example, I don't necessarily have to say anything, because the recipient or the congregation will have their own interpretation of that color yellow. What does that mean to them in the moment? So it's such a wonderful direct medium that we can talk about that color, and we can understand what it means to the recipients, what it means to the spirit communicator, what it means to me within as the medium, and what it means within this moment. So we've got a few directions that we can go just from that one color. And that's the job then of me as the medium, to understand what that spirit communicator is trying to bring forward for the recipient with that color, if that kind of makes sense.
It does make sense. So it's interesting that you're saying that you, I was interested in the way you drew the portraits yesterday and added items, objects into the picture that would have been of importance to the person, or symbols that would have been important to the person. I didn't realize that some of that just, you just kind of do it automatically without thought. Is that
it's very much driven from the spirit communicator. It's very much driven with the instinct of that moment. I remember, when you're working, certainly as many mediums, I don't remember much of the communication, because it's just happening spontaneously within that moment. But I certainly remember one gentleman that came through, and he had an interest in boats and sailing, and that kind of came forward, I think, a little bit from Penny, a little bit from myself. But I started with the color of blue, and I put the blue in, and I knew that this gentleman was someone who liked that freedom. So that was the starting point. And then suddenly you feel, oh, hang on, well, I'm almost got a line here, and the line of the ocean. And then you feel, oh, I feel like there's something, there's a ship, or there's a sailing boat, or something coming in. So if you put that in the picture, it's almost that key to open up and deepen that evidence. And bring forward that. But very, very often I would start with a color, not knowing where that evidence is going to unfold. The same with the mediumship is, oh, I feel some cufflinks. I feel that there was some cufflinks, for example, that came down from the spirit communicator after they passed to spirit. But then I can deepen that evidence. I can start to say, well, what color were they? Well, what initials were on the cufflinks? What design were there? And it's a very direct thing with the art, that I could just draw that and say cufflinks, and I wouldn't need to say anything else. So it's very time efficient. And I know, working with the spirit world, that they like to be very efficient with the energy. So there's no point in wasting that energy, because it's so important. And that communication, as we raise our vibration, and as they lower theirs, to find that harmony and that point of communication, they need to be as efficient as possible. Very much I'm trusting to the spirit, because their intelligence is far greater than certainly my conscious mind. So if I allow that to unfold naturally, it's very interesting how the colors will have significance, how they will then lead on to something else. The same as when you're working with your mediumship. And it's just that flow of information that almost deepens by itself if you hold that space and give it the opportunity to deepen. You give it the opportunity to unfold. And that's really where you get those key pieces of information. And I do remember from that contact with that gentleman that there was a photo that the lady showed where there was a picture of him, and it did look like him, and he was on a boat. So it's a wonderful piece of evidence, but it unfolded very organically as the contact unfolded.
Let's take a moment to talk about you as a fine artist, because I understand that your work, when you're not being a spirit artist, has been exhibited in galleries in various places around the world. Can you tell us a little more about that career?
Yeah, I'm very lucky, and I'm very privileged that you know, life as an artist is not an easy journey at all. And certainly I've had years where the art has gone very well, and then years where the art hasn't. So there seems to be some blockages there, or something hasn't kind of worked. But yes, I've been very lucky because I've been surrounded by art since I was very young. That I got to play and I got to enjoy. The art that exhibited was certainly different series of art. So I went through a phase of drawing very photorealistic images. I did a lot of sports paintings. And then I went into landscapes, and I would paint on location. So I spent a lot of time in the south of France. Obviously, I traveled Australia with the story with Caroline, and I went off backpacking. So I was painting as I was journeying around and traveling around Australia. In the US as well, I've been very lucky to exhibit and sell work. So my work has been very interesting in that sense, because I've had the time to explore certainly large-scale oil paintings that are taking 3 months to complete. And I was very lucky, or a good number of years now, to exhibit in New York, and I did a series of large-scale oils for that exhibition, as well as painting small oils and watercolors that you can do in an afternoon on location. So I was interested in why my art was so varied. And it feels a real privilege to be able to one, create art, but also to have interest from people to purchase that art. But coming forward with the spirit work now, it all kind of makes a little bit more sense why I painted the photorealistic, why I went a bit more abstract, why I went for the landscape work and then the portraits. Because they're all very different disciplines for an artist. And normally artists would pick one discipline and really refine the skills around that and get the style for their art, whereas I seem to dip into the various aspects. And decided at one point to just paint in a series. I want to paint a series of abstracts. I want to paint a series of landscapes, and allowed myself that freedom to explore the art. But now when working, and you may have noticed last night that the portraits were very different. Each one had a very distinctive sort of style to it, although my style of how to draw a portrait came through, but very much a simplistic portrait, or something that was a little bit more impressionist, or there was some abstract elements with it. And I feel that work has really helped me develop that sensitivity around art, but also to link in what the communicator and what the spirit world want me to do. And they want that variety. I talk about it as adding to your spiritual toolbox, or adding to your skill set. The more skills and the more dynamic you are in your skills in this life, the more the spirit world can work through you. And I certainly, the art that I create now is very much either on commission, or I'm going to paint a series for exhibition, and really linking into that attunement and linking into that sensitivity to paint more instinctively rather than form, but knowing that I've got that variety within my toolbox, that I can hopefully spend a few more moments within that intuition and that flow state, to bring those little pieces of joy within that painting together.
Lovely. Let's talk also a little bit about your training to develop your mediumship abilities. You did mention the Arthur Findlay College, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think our audience, some of them may not be familiar with the Arthur Findlay College in the UK.
So the Arthur Findlay College, it's a place near Stansted, near just outside of Cambridge. And it's a wonderful old house. It was bought by Arthur Findlay, a gentleman who was very interested in spirituality, very interested in the psychic sciences. And it was left to the Spiritualist National Union, which is a spiritualist organization in the UK. In 1964, when Arthur Findlay passed to the spirit world. And it was opened a couple of years later as a college for the psychic sciences and psychical research. As that's developed, a lot of the tutors are international tutors, but a lot from the UK that have started to go forward in that development. Well, what is mediumship? Well, how do we train mediums? Asking those questions. What are the psychic sciences? What is the scientific side to spiritualism, to mediumship? How does it work? And asking those questions. Mr. Arthur Findlay was a great advocate in that, and testing and putting forward these experiments to understand, well, what is physical mediumship? Well, what is mental mediumship? So the college has just evolved in a very organic way, in a very beautiful way, to bring this space where the spirit world, and certainly some of the pioneers from the UK have worked there and worked there for many, many years. People like Albert Best, like Gordon Higginson, as I mentioned earlier. That really had that opportunity to hold this space at the college and push forward for that development. Now there's courses running every week. And it's open week next week, actually. So I'm down there for that. And the college opens with some fantastic tutors that all put on demonstrations of mediumship. They bring in the creativity, and there's lots of opportunity to watch people work. And just feel that energy. But it is one of those magical locations, and I'm sure you in the US there are various locations like that where you just step into that space and that building, and you feel that energy, you feel that presence that's there, that is not tangible or noticeable from the five senses, although it is in a level. But when you attune your spirituality, you can really feel that energy, and you can really feel that connection for spirit. So it's such a privilege to go and work there, and to go and have an opportunity to visit. So I know that the tutors are certainly feel that it's a great privilege. Penny Hayward is a tutor there. I first went when I was 19, and then did in and out of it over the years. So very much over 20 odd years ago, I've been very privileged to go. It's 4 hours drive from where I grew up and where I live. So it's not a huge distance. So it's certainly a very well respected college in the UK, and I think worldwide.
Yeah, there isn't really anything quite like it in the United States, although there is Lilydale in upstate New York, which is kind of like a whole little town of psychics and mediums. But there's nothing quite like the Arthur Findlay College here, although there are various courses in psychic skills. You've also trained to be a healer, I understand.
Yes, and I came back yesterday from the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, which again, Harry Edwards, a wonderful healer, and certainly again world renowned, but certainly in the UK had a very, very large following. There's a beautiful old house that he left to the charity when he passed to the spirit world, and it's in the Surrey Hills, which is a beautiful part of the UK. There's 20 odd acres of grounds, and it is primarily focused on healing. So the advancement of healing, what is healing, and delivering healing. Healing is always free for anybody. You can just turn up and you can ask one of the healers for healing, and to create that space. So when I was looking at healing, and I do believe that with art, with mediumship, with anything to do with the spirituality, that healing is really that underpinning vibration of what we're doing. With mediumship, we're looking at grief, and we're dealing with grief on a conscious level, bringing forward that. But we're also, with the energy, we're bringing forward that healing energy from the spirit. and for holding space for the room or for the congregation, or certainly online as well, because there's no distance. We can feel each other's presence on Zoom in different countries and feel that healing energy as if we were sat together in the same room, which I always find is absolutely fascinating. But when I was looking at healing, I really wanted someone who I resonated with. And Harry Edwards came forward. At one point when he was here, he was getting 10,000 letters a week for distant healing, for absent healing, as well as doing the hands-on and the demonstrations. He was very keen that healing was made into the mainstream and brought forward for in hospitals or within, recognized within the medical profession, which was incredibly important for him. And I was just really drawn by him and his energy. Although he passed to spirit many years before I went there, I could still feel that presence. So when I wanted to develop the healing, I looked and there was no option for me. I was just, oh, I'm going to Harry Edwards, and I'm going to learn more about this gentleman. And it just seemed a very natural thing for me to do. So I'm very lucky now that I'm on the board of trustees for the sanctuary. And we're looking at how we can develop, what's the future of healing? How can we make it accessible to the next generation? How do we remove some of those some of those blockages around, well, what is, I don't understand what healing is. Can you explain it? What is the stigma that's attached to it? What is the value of it? And again, very similar to the Arthur Findlay in that sense that it's trying to prove it with science. It's trying to prove it with evidence. It's trying to prove it with communication. And it's very much that same feeling with the healing, that, well, what are we doing? Well, how are people getting better? Because there are countless case studies of the differences that healing, hands-on or distant healing, has made in people's lives, and miraculous recoveries. I'm not saying that it happens all the time, but certainly that openness to healing is incredibly important. And as healers, we can feel that. So it's certainly a passion of mine that healing, as I say, the underpinning vibration for everything we do, but also that tangibility around that use of energy and how we can use that to heal the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual self.
Speaking of healing, the story of how you were inspired toward mediumship is a tragic and heartbreaking one, but it's important. Can you share that story?
Of course, yes. So I'll take you back 2002, and my sister Caroline, when we grew up, we were very lucky and we were very privileged, and I don't mean that in a financial sense, but I mean that in a we were never told anything was wrong. We were told to go out and do it. We were told to have confidence and step forward to do what we want to do. So travel really came into our lives, and I was off traveling in the French Alps. I was working away. I trained as a chef, so I was already going here to work, going there to work. And Caroline, again, she was a very confident young lady. She had a great interest in travel, different cultures, different places that she wanted to go and see. So when she finished college at sort of 19, just before starting university, she wanted to take a gap year. She wanted to go to Australia. She wanted to go and have a year out before she started the next phase of her education. Which at that time wasn't as common as it is today, but still, there was quite a lot of people who had taken that opportunity to go. So we very much encouraged it. I was 5 years older than Caroline. So I was in my early 20s, 24 at the time. So I was already working away. I was working in the French Alps at the time. So yes, I was go and enjoy yourself, have a fantastic time, have a great adventure. So she went off traveling with a friend of hers, found herself in Sydney, and one of the natural ways to travel is up the East Coast, and you do the full loop of Australia, and it's very much a coastal country. So she was working her way up the coast and getting phone calls and photographs. Back then, there was, the mobile phones weren't really in action, so it was emails and it was phone boxes and phone cards. So she found herself in a place called Bundaberg, which is a lovely little town, and it's just north of Brisbane, and a great place. And she'd phoned back to the UK in a phone box, and where she was staying was on the other side of town over a bridge. She started to walk back. It was about 9 p.m. in the evening. And as she's walking over the bridge, it's dark. It wasn't very well lit at the time. And this man comes across and he wants her belongings. He wants her bag, and he wants her, the mobile that she had, which of course wasn't a very good one back then, but he wanted these belongings. And she was a feisty young lady, and she wasn't willing to let those go. So there was a struggle. And she was only sort of 5 foot nothing, really. She was a cute little girl. And the railings were this high on me, and I'm sort of 6 foot. And there was a struggle, and he managed to throw her over the railings, and of course there was a huge drop, and it was down to a park underneath, and she unfortunately she lost her life. That was that. I got a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning in the Alps saying there's been an incident in Australia. I can't tell you much more, but your sister has died. Get yourself back to the UK and the family. So that was really when I found out about it, and had to go home and sort of step into that devastation of our family. That kind of what's happened, what's going on. This can't be true. So all of those questions then came up, and that story unfolded from there. We set up the charity. We wanted Caroline's legacy to live on. Her passion, her enthusiasm for life was far too strong just to let that energy and let that memory fade. So whilst dealing with the grief over the coming months and the years, we wanted to do something positive. We wanted to still encourage people to travel, and we wanted to help that next generation to travel in a safer environment. So we built Caroline's Rainbow Foundation. We looked down the education route. We looked at supporting young backpackers and travelers to educate them to understand the risks, but all times encouraging them to travel. So that became a great pillar of our work. And in a sense, our healing as well, because we had something to focus our grief on. We had something positive for Caroline's legacy, and for her memory. But on the other side, it was a constant reminder that Caroline was no longer here. But it was a distraction from really going inwards at this. So there was a little bit of a juxtaposition within that, that it was a great positive thing, but also we had to deal with our own grief. We had to deal with our own healing. And we all did that, my mother, my father, and myself, we all did that in our own ways, that felt right for us. So it really was an ongoing journey, but it was where I started to ask those questions. What happens when you die? Where is she now? And really that convinced me that her energy was still around, and that presence was still there, because I knew what it felt like if I was working and she walked in the room behind me when she was here. And when I was working or I was sat, I could still feel her presence walk behind me, even though I knew she was in the spirit world. So that really was the key for me to say, hang on, well, I feel her around, even though if I turn around, she's not physically there, but it's the same energy as when she was here, that if I turned around and she was physically there, if that makes sense. That was really the key for me. 2003, I decided to go traveling, and I decided to follow in Caroline's footsteps, which was a very difficult decision to make, but an important decision. I didn't feel I had a choice. So I went off to Australia. There was also the Cayce that was going on at that time. to find this man who had taken my sister's life. And it was really that journey of following on Caroline's footsteps, standing in the same places that she had, but also getting to see the places that she didn't make it to, which was very special but heartbreaking. And the following year, 2004, there was the court case and the trial and everything for this man who was eventually convicted. So I wanted to represent the family at the trial. I attended. It went over 2 weeks, and it was one of the most difficult times that I've ever experienced. But something that I felt was really necessary for Caroline and for my own grief as well. And over the last 20 years, I've very slowly unpacked those little boxes of grief and those little spaces within me that I felt at that time were far too painful for me to explore. But through art, through creativity, through healing, through meditation, through working with the spirit world, you can slowly unpack those little boxes and really go back into that. The book, and very kindly you've mentioned that in the introduction, it was very much a cathartic process for me to write, and also to mark the milestones of the charity, because it goes through the 20 years or the 19 years since she's passed. And it was published back in 2021. So it was very much a process that I wanted to say what the true reality of backpacking is, and it's not necessarily what you see on Instagram and Facebook and all of this every day. So there's my diary entries. So once I started traveling in 2003, I wrote a diary every day while I was traveling, and I've written a diary every day since. And it's something that is really important for me, just to mark those moments and those little key bits of information that we kind of can quite easily get forgotten on a daily basis. So I wanted to bring all of that together from the traveling, talk about travel, talk about travel safety, and talk about the different aspects that related to me, dealing with grief and spirituality. So it all came together in this book. And you know, the charity still goes strong today. We do talks in schools, we do education stuff for the next generation of people going traveling, and holding Caroline's memory.
So the book is Chasing Rainbows, The Stolen Future of Carolyn Ann Stuttle. How do the rainbows come in?
So the rainbows, so we set up Caroline's Rainbow Foundation, and it was the day after Caroline was murdered, the person that she was traveling with saw a rainbow in the sky, and she said it gave her such great comfort. So I feel the emotion as we talk about all this time later. But so there was this beautiful rainbow in the sky, and she said it gave her so much comfort that she felt that Caroline was there, and she felt that that there was a little bit of peace, because obviously for her there was absolute chaos and carnage, and something you would never expect. So she managed to get that moment of peace, and that moment of comfort that brought forward in that time. From them, we took that and we took hold of that, and rainbows then had this significance for us that we started to see rainbows at the different events that we did, or the different times within when we were dealing with bits to do with Caroline, and we were bringing her home, and all these other things, and we wanted to start the charity. So it's like many things, you know, why are you drawn to something, or why do you have to go here? It would just very much happened organically that rainbows came and had this significance for us as the family, after the story that her friend had told. And when we were thinking of names, it was just something that, you know, the rainbow spanning the world. A rainbow is to do with that pot of gold, to going and enjoying and looking forward to the future and your adventures. So it held this space for us, and gave us a sense of peace. And then, of course, because we had this significance at certain events, we would see a rainbow at certain points within the day. We would, when it was a significant moment, there'd also almost be a rainbow there for us. So that kind of built around that. So we called it Caroline's Rainbow Foundation, and hence the title of the book, the Chasing Rainbows, that constant search for asking those questions, almost to try and reach that pot of gold, but understanding that it is the journey, not the destination. And the rainbow is significant in that because it's the richness of color and the spectrum of color within that journey to that pot of gold. So very much within our spiritual journeys, or just within our journeys in career or life or whatever, it is very much each step and that spectrum of color and experience, as we go through that journey that we're so privileged to have the opportunity to take.
You lost your sister in 2002, and your book was published in 2021. What do you think it was that prompted you at that point, so many years later, to write a book?
Well, because I'd written the diaries and I'd kept the diaries, so I knew I was always going to do something with it. And it just felt, I'd written certain chapters and certain bits over the years when I was angry, or when I was sad, or when I was happy, and I had the opportunity. I had a bit of time where I was able to take 6 months off, essentially just to focus on pulling this together. The charity had gone through different evolutions as well. We'd tried different things. We were in a different space. And because it had been 19 years since Caroline, or the anniversary of that was coming up, where it had been 19 years. So she had 19 years on the earth. And I wanted to kind of document and put together what we'd done in 19 years since she'd passed to spirit. So what the charity had done, where we'd taken travel safety, and we developed a three pillar system called knowledge, awareness, and response. So knowledge is the more you know, then the more informed you are, the safer you can hold yourself. You bring your awareness into focus at the right times, and you can reduce that risk. And how you respond in a situation can dramatically change the outcome. So we developed this system, and I wanted to really put that down on paper and in print, so people could have and understand Caroline's story, because it's still relevant today, even 20 odd years later. People are still traveling. They're still going and exploring the world. And Caroline's tragedy, although the next generation won't necessarily remember her story, these 3 key pillars of travel safety, and the story and the journey that the charity had been on, was very much something that I felt needed putting down. And I was very lucky to be given a publishing deal in order to do that.
So you said that you first went to the Arthur Findlay School when you were 19. So that was before you lost your sister. But it seems like it was that event of losing your sister that pushed you further into the practice of mediumship. It brought up questions about what happens in the afterlife, and can you communicate with people and so forth. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Very, very much so. Very much so. It was a point, I suppose, I was in my mid-20s. So I was exploring those questions at that time. I was very interested in philosophy. I was very interested in different cultures. So travel, again, was very important to me. So I was very interested in what things meant on the different versions, different philosophies of the afterlife, different philosophies of how to live your life. Very much exploring those. What should we do in life? What is life about? Why are we here? What are we here for? What is the purpose? And ultimately, well, what is my purpose? But yeah, very, very interested in energy and where we go after this life, and potentially where we've been before this life. All of those questions started to come up, and of course I had a very personal reason in order to do that, a driving force, if you like, that spurred me on to read more books, to sit in stimulating conversations, to talk about other religions, to talk about other philosophies, to really explore those questions, because I wanted to know where she was. And at times I could feel her. And that mediumship, that communication, that part of my conscious mind that needed to know and understand that life is eternal, that energy can't die, that where is she now? Well, what is she doing? Well, why isn't she here? Why has her life been cut short? What is the reason for that? Is there a reason for that? All of those questions that kind of come up, and you think, you're trying to make sense of what happened, but you're also trying to make sense of your own existence. And why has she been taken and not me? Why am I still here? Those bits where I think it's part of the natural grieving process that you go through these different stages of trying to explore and make sense and make peace with it yourself. For the conscious mind, you're trying to satisfy that thought process well, justify why I'm still here and he and she isn't. Why does that? And being angry and being sad and being emotional and being happy, and all of these different things that come up as you try and deal with that. So very much a catalyst for me to work. And now, obviously, working with the spirit, I feel that energy that I feel is her. And she gives me more information and more work now from the spirit world than she did when she was here. So we get to play and we get to have a bit of fun.
Have you had psychic experiences or that experiences of loved ones from the other side seen before that?
I never saw spirit when I was young. I never I was very intuitive as a younger person, and very, very natural. So I felt the emotion, really, that clairsentience, as I've come to understand it. So I would just feel it, and I would having that claircognizance, or that knowing within me that something was right, or something was there. But Caroline very much saw spirit. There's a story in the book where she would go to bed on the evening, and she'd be laid in bed, and the next morning she'd get up. She said to my dad, she said, "Oh, there's a gentleman at the end of my bed, and he was talking, although I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see straight through him." So she would see objectively, she would see spirit. I have never seen spirit. There's another story around the time, because I was in the family home. I was the only one left after Caroline passed. My father lived elsewhere, and my mother could no longer be in the house. So I was the person that kind of had to hold the fort there. And one evening, Caroline and I used to play the organ, the keyboard, when we were young. One evening, I was in bed, and it must have been very late, but obviously at that time I wasn't sleeping much at all. And I could hear the organ playing downstairs. I don't know whether it's objective or subjective, because it's only me. And at that time, I was absolutely petrified. And I just curled up under the covers rather than getting up and going down to investigate. But there have been experiences like that I've not seen spirit, and I've not seen it in that sense. But I've very much felt it, and I've very much had either could have been objective or subjective experiences, such as that, really. So it's more of a knowing for me how it comes forward, and how that feeling comes in. I just have this this knowing, or this claircognizance. And certainly when you look at the development of my mediumship, doing mentorships and various courses over the years, it's very much training the individual clairs, but really getting down into that essence of that knowing. is I just know that this is correct. I know that this is for you. And it unfolds in that way.
Speaking of shops that you do, you teach all over the world, it seems.
I'm very lucky. Yes, yes. So this year is very exciting. So Penny and I are doing some work together. I'm working in Germany. I'm working in Holland. We're working in Lilydale, Penny and I, and towards the end of the year, we're working in Australia. So it's fantastic. It's a great privilege.
And you'll be doing a workshop titled Spirit Art and Mediumship, Unlock Your Creativity and Connect to Spirit, which is online on June 1st from 1 to 4 U.S. time, U.S. Eastern time. Can you tell us a bit about that workshop?
Oh, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like the Zoom as doing something online has really opened up a whole new way of thinking for people. Because you can feel that energy as if you were in the room. It's not quite the same, but we can create a space and we can bring together people from all over the world, which is such a fantastic thing. So technology in that sense certainly is a fantastic tool to do it. The workshop is, again, it's a great privilege to be asked, so I thank you very much. And I'm really excited that we get to play with color. We get to understand the deeper meanings around color. We play with the auric field and understanding that psychic connection with people. Well, what color do I feel for you, and where do I feel that color for you? And then, as I mentioned earlier, that, well, what does the color mean to you? What does it mean to me as the medium? What does it mean to the group within this energy? And what does it mean for the spirit communicator? We also look at portraits and we look at bringing forward that evidence. And again, it's not been you don't have to be a portrait artist. You don't have to be an artist at all, but you can understand something around color. You know, it's as basic as you walk down in the morning and you look at one of the paintings in your home, and what color comes forward for you? Oh, well, I noticed the green in the trees. And then it's asking that question, well, what does that green mean for me now? What do I need? I'm asking that intuitive self what I need. So it's a bit of an exploration around color for what it means for the individual or what it means for the students, but also really understanding what we can do with color and the spirit, how we can bring forward more healing from the spirit world with just color, and how we can bring forward, if I give you the color of yellow, it will have a meaning for you, but from the spirit, it will also have an energetic value that the spirit will be able to channel through that color. So we look at all these different aspects and very much bringing the evidence of a spirit communicator. So if we can draw a face, we can say, did they have a thin face? What shape was the nose? Did they wear glasses? What hairstyle did they have? And we can start to bring forward, so we can develop the mediumship on a visual or from a visual point of view, as well as that feeling of color, the feeling that art gives us, and the creativity, and tapping into your own creativity, because that's one way that I feel is so incredibly important for anyone's spiritual development, is that tapping into creativity. The spirit world see our language as color. So as we speak, the spirit world and the spirit will feel that as color and as vibration. So if they can see it that way for us, we can interpret color as information from the spirit, and we can bring forward so much more evidence and so much more love and healing from the spirit with art and creativity. So again, you can tell I'm excited about it, but it's going to be a great few hours, and we get to just touch on a few different aspects of spirit art and certainly how art links to mediumship. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
And who should take your workshop? Is it only for practicing mediums, or who is it for?
No, aimed at all levels. So even if you're someone who's a newcomer to spirituality, you can still have that same understanding of color. You can say deepen your understanding and your sensitivity. You can use color for yourself, but again, many mediums, and as you were saying, you can bring something colorful from the spirit world with creativity. So if you're a practicing medium, it may be something that you might like to start to introduce creativity or more creativity and color within your mediumship. And that could come forward in the form of reading cards, autographs, just adding color, giving colored ribbons, readings from flowers and colors within flowers. So all of this is just around creativity and understanding. So the aim, or certainly one of the aims of the workshop, is really to inspire people, either practicing mediums or newcomers, to really look at their own creativity and explore it however it unfolds for them. It might be within music, within poetry, within drawing, within painting, within embroidery, or just within flower arranging, you know, all of these different aspects of their own creativity. So really to tap into that for themselves and explore a little bit of how they can develop their own spirituality, but also how they can develop or deepen that communication and that connection with the spirit world with color.
And what is next for you? What do you think is coming next for you? Do you have in mind to write another book, or what do you see coming up for yourself?
I certainly do. Yes, I'm thank you. It's strange you mentioned that. I'm pretty much there with the second book, which is more about that journey of development, and that those different journey points within life where you look at different things. But I'd like to link that in with the mediumship. So very much a guide to how you can bring spirituality into different stages of your life and different development around mediumship, and certainly the art theme runs very much through it. So yes, I'm on with the second book. I do need a bit of time to focus and really to pull it together. When that'll happen, I don't know. Travel and working, it's such a great privilege to be able to demonstrate. I love demonstrating in the churches around the UK, and supporting our churches. It's really an important part of spiritualism in the UK, that we get good quality mediums going around the different churches and bringing that healing, bringing that energy, bringing that communication from the spirit, and really supporting our communities. So very much dedicating time to work in the churches each year, and wherever I get invited, I shall hopefully say yes and go. So I love that almost that open to the possibilities of where the work will take us. But a good few years ago, I dedicated myself to work for the spirit and to go wherever the art and the creativity and the spirit world would like me to go and work. And I've been very privileged that I've certainly had those opportunities, and I will continue to take them if they come forward. So I like the sense of not knowing, as well as being open to all of the possibilities. And there's certainly things that we've got planned, but yeah, it's very much working within the energy, working with students, and demonstrating the art, the creativity, and as I say, that underpinning vibration of healing goes through everything I do now.
And what would you recommend to anyone who has lost someone they love and who is grieving and who is going through what you went through, that just not being able to grasp the fact that that person is no longer here on the physical plane? What would be your advice to other people going through that?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you feel is okay, and there are no rules. Take other people's advice, but only if you want to, you know, because everybody's grieving process is unique to them. I would also say, and I feel is very important and has been for me over the years, is we live too much in the conscious mind. And it's part of grieving is trying to satisfy the conscious mind and understand it. And I've been down a lot of rabbit holes with that, trying to satisfy the conscious mind. So I would say part of it is really going into that emotional self and unlocking that emotion. Allow yourself to feel that physically. Allow yourself to become immersed within that. But whatever happens and whatever comes up, it is okay. It's a very difficult process, and it never goes away. And I couldn't imagine what it's like to lose a child. So my parents, although we've got something in common with grief and the loss of Caroline, I couldn't imagine for 1 second what it'd be like for them. Although I can empathize. And I would also, what it's like to lose a sibling or somebody who is along that same timeline that you are, because it's a different type of grief, and it comes up. The milestones come up. The different milestones come up. So yes, very much enjoy the experience, but whatever comes up. And I say it's difficult to enjoy grief, but there are some good moments and some very pleasurable moments, but it is very difficult. So enjoy that journey, but take that journey step by step.
When you talk about enjoying the journey, that would be the memories, the memories of your loved one, and maybe maybe the feeling of their presence around you, as you talked about.
Very much so. Very much. Take those good memories and those good times.
We have 5 minutes.
All right, so just backtracking a little bit, I want to give the name of your book again in case people are interested in reading it. It's called Chasing Rainbows, The Stolen Future of Carol and Anne Stuttle. And who's the publisher, Richard?
Pegasus Publishers.
And that's available where?
Yeah, you can Amazon, on the Pegasus website, through any stockists in the UK, through my website, and again, all that information about the book, about the charity, the work that we do. The charity's website is carolinesrainbowfoundation.org. We've also got a sister website called safertravel.org. So they're all available online, and again, all of the links are available on my website as well. So yeah, if you Google me, you more than likely you'll find it.
And would you like to, well, could you give people your website address?
Yes, it's richardstuttle.com. So it's just my name, all one word.com. And there's information, there's blogs that I've written on various topics around mediumship, around spirituality. There's all the links to the demonstrations. There's a link to the workshop that we're doing on the 1st of June, all the future events, and some of the art as well, some of my artworks, and that journey through creativity. So there's a fair bit of information on there. It's well, have a look and see what you think.
And if our audience members want to find out more about Richard's workshop coming up on June 1st, or to register, you can go to the website of the ARE of New York, the Association for Research and Enlightenment of New York. The website is www.edgarcaycenyc.org. And I'm going to spell that because many people don't spell Cayce properly. So it's www.edgarcaycenyc.org. And you can read all about the workshop, and if you're interested, you can register. And if you have questions about the workshop or want to reach me, you can email me at info@edgarcaycenyc.org. My name is Lynne Miceli, and again, that address is info, INFO, at Edgar Cayce, EDGARCAYCENYC.org. So this has been a really fascinating discussion, Richard. You're such a Renaissance man. You have all these things that you do, and you're also a chef. You were also working as a chef when all of this started, and you're quite well-rounded. And I really appreciate your being willing to join me and talk about your work and your experiences and your upcoming events. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you ever so much. It's certainly my privilege. So thank you for the invitation. And it's lovely to talk to you. I always get excited about talking about anything to do with spirituality, spirit art, mediumship, healing, and certainly the charity work. And so thank you ever so much for the invitation. It means a great deal.
It's now about almost 10, no, almost 3 where you are in the UK. Did you actually go to sleep and then wake yourself up to do this interview?
I had a couple of hours snoozing, yes. But as an artist, it's very much if I feel inspired to paint till late into the night or get up early in the morning, I've got a studio downstairs, so I can just walk downstairs and start painting. So if the inspiration strikes, then I'm very lucky, and I don't have to get up too early tomorrow, so it's no problem at all.
Well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Hercules, for the opportunity to do this show. Hercules, I think you're talking, but I'm not hearing you.
Muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Hercules. Or maybe you intended to be muted. Well, we're very grateful for this opportunity to do this program. Hercules, we're not hearing you.
My computer decided to upgrade itself, so
Oh,
thank you very much, and good luck with your work. It's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Hercules. Thank you very much for this opportunity and this time.
thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a lovely